Hi, this is Anne Marie van der Zanden, Professor of Horticulture at Iowa State University, and this is our second module on sustainable landscaping, and this one focuses on sustainable landscape management. In this module, I want to talk a little bit about some of the different management strategies that you can use to increase sustainability of a landscape. So I want to talk about two particular parts of this. One of them is during the installation phase, and then the other time where sustainability can be increased is during the maintenance phase. So let's start with the installation phase. Once the landscape design has been selected and the project is about to get started, there's a number of things that the people involved in the construction can do to increase the overall sustainability of the landscape. And it really falls into three different areas. One is to limit the site runoff during construction. The second area is to protect the soil that is on the site. And then the third is to do some type of soil improvement before you actually do the installation of the plant materials. So let me talk a little bit about each of those three. Site runoff can really be an issue when a new construction is going on from a building standpoint. So say, for example, a new house is being built. The site itself often gets quite a bit of disruption. And you can see the picture on the left shows the soil has been moved around. There's probably been a heavy rain event of some sort, and that gully has been created, and water has rushed down that area and moved some soil off. So then you end up with soil runoff issues, and potentially you can end up with non-point source pollution when those soil sediments get into waterways and the like. One of the ways that you can manage that is illustrated in the image on the right, where you can use soil erosion bags. You can see that those dark bags in the black are placed at the edge of that bed before that grate, and so in doing that they will prevent the runoff coming down that slope and into that drainage grate. So that's one way that you can manage it. There's a number of other options out there. I'd encourage you to look to some online resources if you're interested in more of the products in particular. The other thing that needs to happen during the installation phase is related to protecting the soil. The image on the left shows some gentlemen laying down a grid type material, so when the heavy equipment is drawn onto the property, the grid will displace that weight a little bit and protect the soil so it doesn't get as compacted. The picture on the right shows what we love about beautiful soil, that top 6 to 10 inches, kind of depending upon where you are in the country, of dark brown rich soil is actually fairly fragile, and so if it's not protected during the construction phase, you can end up having all kinds of longer term problems with the plant material because they're not able to grow in a more compacted soil. The other thing that needs to occur during the installation phase is soil improvement. The picture on the left illustrates what we often see on new construction sites, where you've got some soil there that's been compacted and disturbed. It's the kind of lighter brown color, and then construction will be finishing up. They're ready to install the landscape. A layer of topsoil is brought in, kind of spread across the compacted soil, and it's ready to go. The problem is that the plants don't do well, the roots aren't able to grow well as they move from that kind of light and fluffy topsoil into the more compacted soil below it. So the image on the right illustrates how you might overcome that, and one of the best ways is by tilling in some type of either topsoil or compost into the more compacted construction related soil, so you end up with a better planting environment overall. The next phase is the maintenance phase, and because landscapes grow and change over time, maintenance is a really important part of creating a landscape's long-term sustainability. So I want to talk a little bit about three main areas related to maintenance: the plant material maintenance, irrigation systems and management, and then just the mere fact of mulching your landscape can increase the sustainability. So let's talk about plant materials first. The overall goal of a sustainable landscape relative to maintenance is really to minimize the amount of green waste that's created by the landscape. So one of the ways to do that is to select the right sized plants for the landscape. I love the picture on the top right where you've got those large overgrown evergreens. It's really kind of hard to find the front door. You think that it's in there somewhere. But that's an example of using plant material that's really not well suited for that particular location in the landscape. Need to be pruned on a regular basis, otherwise you won't be able to get in the front door. As a result, creates a lot of pruning or green waste. The picture on the bottom right, don't remove the lawn clippings. If you can, when you mow the lawn, use a mulching mower or an attachment on your mower so it just leaves the lawn clippings on the lawn. It's better for the lawn long term and also reduces any green waste. And then the image on the bottom left is a compost pile, and whenever possible, if you do generate green waste from your landscape, if you can compost it and then be able to reintroduce it back into the landscape as a soil amendment, that's a very sustainable practice. The irrigation system the selection is incredibly important. Oftentimes we think of sprinklers that are the picture on the right, kind of a pop-up head type of a system. But really, if you can think about how your landscape might need to be irrigated and then choose a system based on that, that's a much more sustainable approach. So thinking about the plants that are in the landscape, are they new plants or are they more established plants? Those two categories of plants will need different amounts of water. What time of year? Obviously, if you're in an area that doesn't get a lot of summer precipitation, then you'll need to be watering in the summer. In other parts of the country, maybe either in the spring or in the fall is when irrigation is more needed because there's limited rainfall. The other thing to consider is the soil type. What type of an infiltration rate do you have and water holding capacity? Some soils don't really hold water very well. The water tends to run through them quite quickly. If that's the case, then you may need to water more frequently, but use less water applied at a given time. So being sensitive to that is important. Creating irrigation zones, so those plants that have high water use requirements get more water. Those that have a lower water use requirement get less water, is a much more sustainable approach than all plants get the same amount of water. And then the other option is to use a weather-based controller, and that ties in with the weather conditions, and then the plants only are irrigated based on the amount of temperature and moisture and wind conditions that have been going on during that time frame before the irrigation comes on. It's a way to manage it and tie it in more with the environmental conditions. If you're not using a sprinkler system, there are some other alternatives. You can use a rain barrel to capture rainwater. The limitation with that is, you can't capture unless you've got a lot of barrels or one really big barrel. You're limited in how much water you can capture, but it is an option. The other type of system to consider are soaker hoses or hoses that have inline emitters, which is what is in the bottom picture. So the water is really just applied right at the base of the plant rather than via a sprinkler where you can end up with a little bit of waste. I love this picture because the bottom line is if you have a poor design of an irrigation system, you're going to end up with a poor result. So this is a sports field. I don't think it's supposed to have circles of green and brown. I think it's supposed to be a nice lush green plain surface. But just bringing back to, poor design. If you don't design it well to start with, you're probably going to be disappointed with the end result. The other thing I like to point out is that plants don't waste water. It's the humans that are creating the irrigation systems or managing the irrigation systems is really where the problem is. The picture on the top left I enjoy because you can see the irrigation system isn't really watering the turf very well based on the dry patches. But it is doing a good job of irrigating the pavement. And as I often say when I do this type of a presentation, I don't know any pavement that if you water it, that it will actually grow and increase. So that's a bit of an issue. The picture on the bottom right, I just have to include this, again showing people wasting the water. You can see the sprinkler clear back against the building, and it's shooting water out trying to get the orange and red flowers that are up in the very front of that picture. Probably would be better off to just water that with a handheld hose rather than trying to use a sprinkler for it. So just wanted to put that in there to share that with you. The other part that is important when it comes to management is mulching. It's a very simple process to do. A layer of about 3 to 5 inches is really all that's needed, and the things that adds to the landscape are incredibly sustainable. So it can reduce the evaporation or water loss from the soil. It can control erosion. It can also help suppress weed growth. And if you're using an inorganic material like bark mulch or something like that, as it breaks down and decomposes, it actually adds nutrients back into the soil profile. So mulching is an incredibly important part of creating a sustainable landscape. The other way that you can benefit from mulching is to allow leaf litter to accumulate naturally. So rather than removing the leaf litter at the end of a growing season when the trees are losing their leaves, allow that to remain on the ground, and then as it decomposes, it will have those same mulching effects as if you were applying a bark mulch or something like that each spring. So that wraps up the section that we have here on sustainable landscape management practices. Thank you.